Hello. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much to be here.
Thank you.
Hello. I didn't see you in a while, like 2 minutes, because we were separated in the backstage. So we just have 20 minutes, so we'll make it very quick, this kind of state-of-the-art that I want to present to our public that are hearing us. So correct me if I am wrong, but people are reading, first of all, and they are reading more, in fact, in some generations and in some genres. So if I remember quite well a sentence that you said, the slices of the pie changed a bit, but in the end, everything is going well and reading is still sexy, not that much, but we will find out why and how to make it sexier. So digitalization is an issue, and in Nordic countries, it's like crazy. Everyone wants digital right now. I know that there are some things that are being done just to try to make children go back to the paper, and I'm sorry, I'm an old soul, I'm always with some paper, and as you see, Torres is with his tablet, so you see, northern countries. We have a relevant thing happening in ebooks and audiobooks, so, and in TikTok. So we have some trends that we should address in here because they are important to understand how can we educate responsibly for these. And one number that I would like to put on the table as well, and correct me if I'm wrong, independent materials in US fall from 20% to 4% in the last 20 years.
The independent bookstores?
Yes.
Yes.
Is this correct?
That's correct, I'm afraid
So
to say.
this is a trend as well.
It's a sad trend, but it's a
and
trend.
maybe we can start with that.
Well, it's one of the many things that have changed in the last 20 years. And if you would talk to American publishers 15 or 20 years ago with the arrival of the ebook, every prediction made would have been completely wrong. So there may be something to learn from here. The predictions were at the time were, if you were an innovator, you said that it would all be digital in 2 years. Mm-hmm. If you were an old school person who wasn't getting it, you'd say maybe 5 years. And everyone was wrong. Because the market now, that pie that you just talked about, is still the 1 billion units being read and bought every year in the United States. But now it's 75% print still, 12% ebook, and 12% digital audio. So what we've seen is that when people read, they read different kinds of books in different formats. Mm-hmm. Now, if you look at American habits, if you dare, you have 1/3 of the country not reading at all. 1/3 of the country reading in print only, it's like your notebook, and 1/3 of the country reading in print and electronic both. So what are they reading? The ones who are reading genre fiction, mysteries, romance, fantasy, are reading almost entirely in digital form. Those are 80, 90% sometimes in ebook and digital audio. But then you look at literary fiction, something more immersive, less linear, less plotted. You see 50% print, 50% digital and audio. And then you go to nonfiction in adult, and it's 80% print still. The more serious the nonfiction is, the more it stays in print. And then you go to children's books and illustrated books and cookbooks and so on, and you have 90, 95, almost 100% print still. So the differences are radical between kinds of books. And a lot has been learned in the last 15 years, the hard way, about how to protect print and how to use these other formats to benefit all these different readers.
And we'll get there. Torres, you were saying that it's 50% already of the market that is digital already in Norway, right? And going up?
Yeah, still going up. But first, let me thank Appel for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here, and I should say that you should really be proud of this event. So I'm really inspired by what you're doing here, these two today. So congratulations with that. And yes, we are still going up with digital. So now in the trade book market in Norway, we are approaching 60% of the volume in audiobooks, just a little bit in ebooks, and paper books are still declining.
Okay.
For the last 10 years, we've lost like 40% of the Norwegian book market, and the English books are going up at the same time. But I think your message is the same as mine. These are different markets. It's not that audiobooks is cannibalizing paper books. It's a whole different market. If you look at all the people going around here in Lisbon with the earpieces in, are they listening to your stories? Are they listening to podcasts or music? You're not into the audio market, so you're losing that audience. So we should really embrace the digitization, but with it comes some problems that we have to solve on the way.
It's like a television, radio, cinema, and the problems that we had with all the media, isn't it? It's just a change of media.
Well, it's an incredible statistic that in Norway, 60% of the market is now audio. In the United States, the graph line, if you project it out, you might think would go there, because what's happened is that audio was maybe 1 or 2% only about 5 or 6 years ago, and the ebooks have gone down as audio has gone radically up, because people are on screens all day, and they are looking for an opportunity to listen to a book while cooking, driving, doing other things. So the multitasking of audio, especially in genre fiction, celebrities reading their own work, and a certain kind of inspirational book that is right in their ear that they like, is intimate. It's those categories are skyrocketing. But what's amazing is when you mention TikTok, that the books being sold in the United States that are being driven primarily by TikTok to a very young audience are almost entirely in print. And those are in fantasy, romantasy, romance, and young adult. Young adult has increased 48% in the last 5 years in the United States, almost entirely in print. And those books are being gorgeously made and sold at higher prices, and they're collectible, and it's an entirely new trend, reversing back. It's like vinyl reappearing in the music trade.
So we are optimistic. I mean, you were telling us about how the print still works on intense book or literature. I don't know if I can say serious literature because it's
immersive material.
Immersive material.
Yeah, non-linear. Yeah.
Non-fiction.
It's either way around. When you're doing something else, listening, the complex texts, you can't take them in. So they are left behind in the paper book market.
Okay.
And that could be a problem, because if that market decline is getting less bookstores and so on, the market is shrinking for the more complex literature. So that's the part of the problem that we are struggling with.
And how do we solve it? Come on, guys, $1 million question here. Let's save the world today.
Well, let me again emphasize that audiobooks is really an opportunity to get into the phones.
Okay.
Yeah, to compete for the time and attention and get the histories out there. But there are different kinds of histories than the histories that are left in the paper book market. But for me, it's in the long term, it's all about getting the kids to become readers. So I think that's in the long run. This is where we should make all our efforts to make the kids read.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I would like to address that because, in my understanding, Northern Europe are starting to abandon the tablets and so on schools. That it is something that we are thinking about doing now. So having the children get back to the books, to the paper, I believe that you have some initiatives regarding to that as well. So in this understanding that we need to put children living with paper, is that correct?
Let me give you some context. The Norwegian people are among the most book reading in the world. More than 80% read or listen to books. And they read and listen to 13 books a year. Still, we see that a trend at the PISA test that the Minister of Education mentioned yesterday. The PISA test, the reading skills of Norwegian youth is really going down. We are at the same level as Portugal at this time. So this is really worrying, and we see that the countries in the Nordic, now we're getting the government into this problem, and they're really starting to reverse the process. And I think in this regard, the pandemic was really a bless for us, because the speed digitization in schools really made us see these problems much more clearly than we would for the next 10 years, getting a more straight curve on this. And so the Swedish government last year, they put 150 million into more school libraries and more books for kids. The Norwegian government this year made 30 million euros into buying books. So there are enough books in the classrooms and in the backpacks of kids. Yeah.
Well, sadly, in the United States, we're busy banning books more than we are supporting them in schools. That seems to be our focus. Luckily, though, social media has taken the place of government and is driving, as I said, book sales to an incredibly younger and younger age. And it is almost entirely print. So you have authors like in romance, Colleen Hoover, for instance, who are just going exploding. And you have Sarah Moss, and you have Leigh Bardugo, and you have these. It's a lot of fantasy, but being bought in collectible editions. And you know, it's interesting because when you say, what can we do? Barnes & Noble, the one national book chain of physical bookstores in the United States, has set aside a section of the store for TikTok-driven titles. So it's almost like a reverse back into the bookstore of, here's the books that someone is crying about in TikTok. So now you can see them in the store and not just order them online.
And you can cry as well.
And you can cry.
And do your TikTok,
privately,
your own TikTok.
Which is a happy thing, not a source of tears for the return of the physical bookstore. The 4% of the independent bookstores that remain, that you just mentioned, are actually much more successful and strong than they would have been 20 years ago. They own the event market, they do podcasts, they're actually doing a good business. But it is a drop from the amount of independent bookstores. But Barnes & Noble, who was almost out of business a few years ago, is now back and stronger again.
Thanks to TikTok.
And this is again an example of the possibilities of digitization, because we're really driving English books by these. So digitization drives commercialization, drives internationalization, meaning more English books. And I believe you have the same challenge in Portugal, because it's not a problem that young kids read English books. It's a possibility. But still, in Norway, we've gone from less than 10% English books to 20%, more than 20% volume in our bookstores and online in the last 5 years. So this is really a trend that's driving it. And you having a market of 330 million people in the US and 1.4 billion people reading English, but for Portuguese publishers and for Norwegian publishers, this is, it's a possibility, but it's also a challenge, because we know that our native language is really important, bringing out our stories in the right way.
And well, I feel like I should apologize. And I do. I feel bad about that.
You always want the whole world.
You should.
Why?
It's our nature. It's born of conquerors, or occupiers. However, there are things to be done that you can learn from the American experience, and one of them, which caused an enormous upheaval in the United States that you may know about, was the battle over who controls pricing of digital material. So the need for publishers to do everything possible at the outset of digital growth of digital formats to control the pricing so that the book isn't devalued against the print to an extent that it cannibalizes print. It becomes incremental, as you were saying. So controlling pricing is critical. The other thing the other mistake made, I think, was that in the face of the lower priced digital competition, publishers started reducing the specifications of their print books. The paper quality went down, the physical production went down, and so there was almost less of a reason to buy print. It was like, it became less and less attractive. And the opposite trend is happening now, where books are being produced with stained edges, sprayed edges, stenciled edges, beautiful end papers, maps, vellum. I mean, it's going back to old bookmaking in a way. And there are different editions that are collectible from different retailers and different book clubs, and people are collecting boxed sets. There's an incredible learning to be had in offering. If you're offering print, make it be something that is special and unique as an object that people want to own and keep.
It's a luxury thing right now, isn't it? So you just don't spend like $15 or euros on something, but you will spend like 100 if it makes sense.
Yeah, one famous publisher in America used to say, "Charge them more and they will thank you." And it's an odd thing to say, but in a way, if you've produced something, if you're going to buy print, make it be something that stands out as unique. The other thing that I think we've learned, and that we're still experimenting with, but is there's great opportunity in using the ebook and audiobook to promote the physical sale. So using the ebook, maybe a chapter or an audiobook chapter as a free teaser or as a pre-order incentive online for the physical. There's so many things to do. Even bundling could happen that really hasn't happened in the United States, but could, where if you buy the print book, you get
something special,
some discount
else.
off of the ebook or the audio, or you get something special in each format.
Torres, you have like 3 minutes and 36.
My view on pricing is an interesting topic because we see that a new book in Norway now is about 40 euros. And the digital, you can get all audiobooks for free for like 15 euros a month. And this could be a problem on the way. And one of the things that I've really been thinking about yesterday is that 20% of the people in Portugal are poor. This is a real problem. And how could you solve this? And I think that libraries and school libraries must be an important part of this of a solution here, because the money is an object, and if books are too expensive, they haven't been, so we should really have a market that is commercialized, but also a market that is state financed to have books out in the public and where people live. It's really important.
So I will ask you for in 1 minute each, to give us some tips in order to, make reading sexier than ever.
Okay, tips for sexy reading. Make sure that the pricing is in balance, as I said before. You have to have a dynamic pricing so that the print has its own life and their ebook and the audio complement it. And there are different audiences for different genres, as we were saying.
So let's not freak out.
No, don't freak out.
Okay.
Right. The other thing, as I was saying, is don't abandon physical production. There's so many categories that even after all of the experience with digital in the United States and the lower pricing and the subscription models for audio, in spite of all that, you have these categories that remain 80% physical. And don't give up on the physical bookstore or the physical, and don't stop investing in printing and production, because if you do,
you will lose it. Okay.
What happened in the pandemic in the United States is the supply chains that had been abandoned for the previous decade or two, suddenly we had all this incredible demand for print that we couldn't meet. And embrace these digital formats, especially in certain genres, without freaking out about the other genres that you can emphasize physically. Make beautiful physical books. Embrace social media, because it drives the print market to an incredible degree. And be experimental. Offer pieces of other formats to drive other formats.
Okay, thank you. Torres, you have 1 minute.
Yeah.
We will
embrace the digital trends. But digital is not reading paper books. It's a whole other thing. So we really need a movement for reading, like you are starting here. And first of all, I think the crucial issue is making the kids future readers. And I'm convinced that it means that the state has to be involved in this. We need more regulations, more funding to do so. And we need brave politicians and a government that really understands the importance of having a reading population. So my advice is really 3 things that we are struggling with now. 1, getting parents to read for kids. 2, less screen times, more books in the schools. And 3rd, having native academic books in higher education. This is how we bring them into adulthood, where they can read and learn for the rest of their life. And on top of this, making books available in all local areas through bookstores, through libraries, and especially school libraries.
Rob, thank you so much. Thank you very much.